Hi everyone, this is my first ever video in English, and as you can tell from my accent, English is not my mother tongue, so just wish me luck. I decided to start my tarot related YouTube channel from some tag videos, and just on time Kelly Bear released her amazing video tag 54321 Tarot, and I just couldn't resist. It immediately pushed me to make my own video response. So that's what I'm doing. We are gonna be looking at 5 tarot decks, 4 tarot related books, 3 tarot spreads, 2 tarot habits, and 1 tarot advice, let's say. 5 tarot decks. I decided to choose the decks that I'm currently working with, and Kelly was actually very free concerning the criteria that each creator of the video chooses. So my criteria was just my current mostly used decks, and these are some of my most favorite decks, some of the decks that are always in rotation. I have like a big collection of tarot decks, and I really like using my decks. So I don't really use one deck for a really long time, like permanently, but I tend to come back to particular decks that I really like. So this is the first one. It's Japaridze Tarot. I don't have the packaging for this one. I have a guidebook somewhere, but I read it once, which doesn't contain a lot of text, but it's pretty comprehensive and it didn't leave any questions, so it made me really understand well what was the whole point of the images and what was the thought behind the images. I really love the style of Nino Japaridze, the artist who created this deck. This is one of my most favorite, probably, moon cards from all the decks that I own. It's an amazing deck. It has an interesting perspective on some of the cards, and I have to say that I like to read this deck in oracular way, paying attention to the story depicted on the card, and these stories, they are really working well. So this is one of my all-time favorite decks and also current favorites. The second one would be the Clover Tarot. I don't keep this deck in its original packaging because it's for keeping it on the shelf, but not for using it. Oh, sorry for the lighting. I'll put my shutters a bit lower. So I got this deck. It was one of the first indie decks that I got, and it was like 5 years ago. Until now, I still love it. It's still one of my favorites. It was created by a Latvian tarot reader and artist. I really like the sense of humor that this deck has, and one of the examples of these humorous cards is 5 of Wands. I think it's amazing. Doesn't this card remind you of any maybe movie? I really like this deck. It has its own sense of humor. It has its own way of saying truth in your face, and I really like this honest decks, the ones that do not shy from the bitter truth, and this is one of them. 10 of Swords, really amazing 10 of Swords, don't you think? So Clover Tarot, my second all-time favorite deck. The next one is Pythonic Tarot. This deck was created by Jessica Shaw from New Zealand, and this deck has such a strong, in my opinion, witchy, feminine vibe. Most of the characters depicted here, they have They don't really smile. They have this kind of serious faces, and the outfits, the locations, they all suggest this kind of witchiness in every single card. It has its own vibe. It's a little bit cold and distracted, but not because it has something against you. No, just because this deck is its own thing. It's kind of, it demands being treated with respect, which I totally agree with. I treat all my decks with respect, and I really like this one as well. She's very honest deck, and it has an amazing guidebook. I don't have it next to me because, again, I have this deck for over 3 years now, and I know most of the cards, so I don't really need the guidebook, but it's pretty good. My other favorite is Ashera Tarot, and these are some extra cards. There are more cards, extra cards that have like hints and keywords for the cards, but I don't use those, so I keep them aside. This is a Golden Dawn inspired deck, so it has some references to the Thoth system and also to Wade Smith system, but I think actually this is how I'm gonna probably come to learning Thoth, starting from this deck, because it already gives you a pretty good insight into what you can expect from the Thoth system. So it kind of prepares you. It already allows you to go that direction. I do love the artwork. It's just amazing. I love the colors. I love the stories that are behind every of this depiction, and yeah, it's a really comprehensive deck, no matter how maybe esoteric it looks. This is a very comprehensive esoterism and I use this deck for any kinds of questions, even some mundane, ordinary stuff. And another deck, which is unfortunately out of print, is the Tarot of Metamorphosis, and this is by Los Carabeo, art by Luigi Di Giamarino. I really like his art. Why I love this deck? Well, again, this deck does work for all types of questions. It is based partially on mythology, partially on pieces of literature, and also partially on some general idea for the suit. For instance, the Suit of Pentacles depicts like futuristic images, futuristic characters, something that writers of fantastic novels imagine may take place in the future. Then the Chalice suit is about mythology. The Sword suit is partially based on literature pieces and partially on some like characters from the history. Like, for instance, this guy is the Harlequin, and this guy, for instance, he is just the character from the surrealistic artist, the Belgian surrealistic artist. Oh, I forgot his name. He's very famous, who drew the guy with this hat. And they're all different. As you can see, here is another mythological references. This is the underworld Riva, and this is the guy who takes the souls to the other side. And this deck has a little bit of everything. This is Franz Kafka and his famous piece about the guy who turns into a bug. Yeah, and generally this deck is really good for philosophical type questions, although it doesn't mean that it's not good for mundane stuff. It's good for all kinds of stuff, and I generally don't tend to use decks specifically for particular questions. All my decks are more or less universal, so this is one of those, and I really like the choices that were made. They are not your typical choices, and it's worth taking those stories into account, and sometimes the stories can just literally translate into reality. Tarot books. As you can tell, as I'm not a native speaker, so when I started to learn tarot, a lot of the books that I was reading about tarot, they were not in English. Some were in English, but majority, especially in the very beginning, they were not. So I don't want to show you books that are not translated in English, because some of them have not been. And I decided to pick the best guidebooks from the decks that I used to work with. And I will start with the Ashera Tarot guidebook. It's printed out, but generally it comes in electronic form, in the form of PDF. But I think that Sarah Whitley did a really great job. I really admire the choices for the of the stories and of the depictions that she made. This guide has really extensive explanation of majors and smaller explanations of minors, but this is more than enough. And the explanation that she gives worked so well that I kind of remember most of the depictions of the cards that she made in her book, and actually I apply them even when I use other decks to read. So this is a brilliant book in my opinion. Another Golden Dawn based deck, Tabula Mundi, has this accompanying book, Liber Mundi, and this is a brilliant book. And as you can say from the condition of this book, I have to go somewhere and do the proper binding for this book, but I've read it all. I really like the way the book was written. I can't say that I like the deck itself as much from aesthetical point of view. It's not exactly what I like, not exactly my style, but the book makes it so easy to understand this deck and to work with it. It's just brilliant. I think that Melissa Moline has done such a great job, not just from finding the esoteric symbolism in order to apply it for particular cards, but also in explaining it in a very simple and comprehensive way. So I really enjoyed reading this book and working with Tabula Mundi deck. And I actually got Rosetta Tarot as well, and Rosetta is also aesthetically not exactly my cup of tea, but I'm looking forward to read the book in the first place. Another great guidebook in my opinion is the guidebook for Chrysalis Tarot, and as you can see, this looks pretty used, and oh my god, it's so dirty. Yeah, but it's been read many times, and this book doesn't leave any questions concerning the cards in my opinion, because this deck is unique. It has its unique structure. It has different view of court cards. They are all represented as a company of artists, and not your typical archetypes that you find in court cards, but they are all very well explained. And the same concerns the minors, and the majors are not typical. For instance, this is the Hermit. Okay, this is more or less expected for Justice Maat. Herne the Hunter for the Chariot. This card, Divine Child for the Hierophant, usually causes a lot of questions, but if you read the guidebook, it will answer all your questions, and I don't think you will have any questions left. Another great guidebook that I really enjoyed is the Compendium for the Gothic Tarot by Joseph Fargo. And here what I like is that here is the depiction of the card. There is the divinatory meaning, and also here is the explanation of what's going on in the card, and also there is a separate part of the description which concerns the initial image on which this card is based, because a lot of images from this deck were not made initially for the deck, but Joseph Vargo went through all his work and he decided himself which images would fit particular arcana, and he also made some extra images for this deck, and here are all the explanations. And I really like that there are those additional references to the artwork that was created earlier, and I really enjoyed this book. Now we are into 3 spreads. So my favorite spreads, okay, I will start with the smallest spread, and this would be the 3-card spread. This is more of a checkup spread that I like to make it when, I don't know, something extraordinary happens, and something that kicks me out of this balanced condition of mind and spirit, you know. And it's a 3-card spread. The middle card is what energies I have in balance currently in me. Then on the left would be the card that represents which energies I'd better reduce a bit, and the reduction of this energy can benefit me, and which of the energies are not enough, and enhancement of these energies could help me. So this is like my checkup spread that I do from time to time, just to make sure that I do still have this grasp of reality, that I'm not overthinking, overimagining things about myself and about my behavior in particular situations. The other spread that I really like is a 5-card spread, and this is actually my go-to daily spread. This is also sometimes called elemental spread, and it consists of the middle card, which is the spirit. Then I'm gonna show you how I lay out the cards, but I've seen different ways to lay out the cards. Here is the element of air, which is responsible for communication and our thinking patterns. This is, I guess it doesn't fit. I should have taken a smaller deck. Okay, here down is earth. This card is responsible for resources. It could be finances, it could be any other resources that we're gaining or getting rid of. It's also the condition of the physical body. Here is fire. This card is responsible for ambitions, desires, actions. So if it's a daily spread, then most likely it will show what I'm going to be dealing with or what I'm going to be doing that day. And this is water. Water is responsible for emotions and for psychic abilities, for intuition as well. But in short, it's my mood. So this is like the main theme for the day, what I'm gonna be thinking of, and my communication for the day, what I'm gonna be doing, how I'm gonna feel, and in case if I gain something, if I have some income or outcome of resources, this card will also show this, and my mood. So I really like the spread. This is my go-to daily spread. I stopped doing card of the day long ago because I realized that one card is not enough, but this is the great way, in my opinion, to learn the connections between cards, and also to learn a deck if you want to learn a deck by daily draws, because every day you are dealing with 5 cards instead of 1. And my last spread, this would be a relationship spread. This is a very common spread that I like to use, and I use it not only for relationship between people. This spread can be used for relationship even between countries, between companies, between big organizations. And the layout is like that. So for instance, we have two partners, and I'm doing a spread for their relationship. So this is more of an analytical spread, not a predictive one. So these cards are showing the thoughts, so what the partners are thinking of each other. These cards show emotions, how they feel towards each other, and these cards show their behavior towards each other, and this card here shows what is between them, how their relationships currently can be depicted. And also over here you can lay out a card with the forecast, like predictive card. You can think of, for instance, where this relationship is going within the next 3 months, for instance. This is my favorite layout for relationship. Okay, next, 2 tarot habits and or paraphernalia. Well, one of my habits, it's very strange and inexplicable, is that when I'm doing a spread, for instance, it's a 3-card spread, let's make it easy. After I've read the cards, what I always do, and I cannot explain it, I have to put them back in the deck like this. And after that, I shuffle the deck overhand, or I do a little riffle, doesn't matter. But this is what I have to do. It's like, I don't know, it's like my ritual, and if I don't do this, I kind of feel a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, this is the first thing. And then I love to have some cases, pouches, just whatever it can be. Like, this is the pouch in which I keep my Clover Tarot. I got this pouch on Etsy from one of the sweet sellers from Etsy. I have a lot of her pouches and a lot of her tarot cloths, so she does a really great job, and I think this is like this is really great quality, and from inside, from outside. So I also make pouches myself, and I usually use recycled leather for that. But if I buy, because I bought these pouches during the period of time when I didn't have any inspiration to do something on my own, so these were really a good solution, and I really like them. And the last is one piece of tarot advice or a card you wish to embody, and why. Well, if you can judge from the name of my channel, I obviously want to embody the Hermit, and I think I'm embodying the Hermit most of the time in my life. This is my favorite archetype from the tarot, and I catch myself embodying particular traits of a hermit, positive and negative actually, pretty often. So this is it. I hope it was bearable, and I hope there was not much external noise. And thank you all, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.